What is going on, guys? Thank you so much for clicking on the video. I hope you're doing well. So you guys already know the deal. Get your hands ready. I want them to be nice and primed. Make sure they're nice and limber. Pull those fingers. Slap them against the table. Do what you gotta do to make sure they're ready to leave a comment down below. Guys, if you are new here and at any point you believe I deserve it, I would really appreciate a sub. If you do decide to do that, make sure you go ahead and hit that bell so that you get notified whenever I go live, or not go live, but whenever I post a video. I'm thinking about Twitch. Sorry, I was just live last night. By the way, you should go follow me on Twitch if you want to. Also, make sure that you are following me on Twitter so that you get notified whenever I go live on Twitch or whenever I post a new video. All right, let's get into this. Bro, I am telling you, do not play the Division 2, because if you do, you will get addicted. That's the problem. That's the problem. You will get addicted. Today, I wanted to talk about why I think the Division 2 is so unique and why more people need to be playing it, actually, in contrary to what the thing says above. But seriously, like, you should probably consider playing this game. And you might want to deny it, but you know, it's okay because the Division 2 has its problems, but it also has some really awesome things about it that no other game really has. So now I really wanted to talk about that and kind of expand that a little bit for the people that don't actually know about it. So let's go ahead and talk about this. First things first, this is a cover-based shooter. Not too many cover-based shooters are doing well in 2020, or even like the past like 5 years. Okay, yeah, you could say Gears 5, but okay, who really cared about Gears 5? Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Let's be 100% real. I mean, I'm sure Gears 5 was a good game, but not many people played it. Period. So like, let's just cut that out, right? Division 2 is really the main player when it comes to cover-based shooters, and they do it honestly really freaking well. Like, really well. So if you're looking to get into a cover-based shooter, this is the game for you. The next thing I want to touch on is that the game is actually grounded in realism, which not too many other games have, especially games in the looter shooter genre. Almost every other looter shooter is some sort of sci-fi based game where, I mean, it's cool, but it's fantasy, right? It's something that you can't really expect to happen anytime soon. In the Division, the whole story is based around something that can happen literally tomorrow. It's something that could actually happen, and to be honest, a lot of people on Reddit were making jokes about our current global situation and kind of mixing it in with the the Division, and let's just say the mods didn't really appreciate the jokes. But I digress. But this game is based in realism. This is a story that can 100% happen, and it's just interesting to play in. It's an interesting scenario to be in. So that's one thing that definitely grabs people and brings them towards the game. If that's something that you potentially might be interested in, you should definitely give the game a shot. The next thing that I want to touch on is how interesting and varied the AI is. So this is actually the important part of the video, and this is probably going to be the longest portion of it. So let's just go through this. So a lot of people seem to think that the AI are a little bit too much or overtuned or whatever, but you have to appreciate how much work they put into this AI. Let me go ahead and explain it. So first off, each AI has, or each faction I should say, has different variables that determine how they're going to act, right? So we have aggression, organization, training, and tech. So all those different things determine how a faction is going to play out. For example, we have the hyenas, right? The hyenas use a bunch of tech. They use drones, they use like flying drones, they use like little RC cars, you know, they use a bunch of stuff like that. So they're pretty high in the tech field, but they aren't really trained very well. They don't have a lot of organization, and they're also very aggressive. So like, that's kind of the things that you see with that faction in comparison to, let's say, the True Sons, which are very high organized, very well trained, but they don't use a lot of tech like at all, and they're not super aggressive. They're extremely defensive. Like they usually play behind cover a lot more than, let's say, the hyenas would or the outcasts would. So like, that's something that you kind of want to keep in mind with this game. Like, each faction is very different from one another, and they have these different variables that change the way they act and make them feel distinct from all the other ones. So that's one thing that's really awesome about this game. The next thing is, in terms of AI, there are so many different enemy archetypes, so many different types of enemies that you could come across, and they all feel different for each faction. We have the rusher, the sniper, the heavy, a thrower, controller, leader, tank, assault, support, and even special. Special would be stuff like named enemies, bosses that have like special abilities that, you know, most other archetypes wouldn't have, right? Stuff that's more handcrafted. But in this game, you have all these different archetypes, and for each faction, they feel pretty distinct. For example, a heavy in one faction may just be an enemy that has an LMG and kind of just stays behind cover and mounts somewhere and shoots you. For example, let's say the heavy for the Rikers, right? There's a heavy for the Rikers, and what he does is he places down a turret and he starts shooting at you with that turret, and the turret is like a shield turret. But a heavy for another faction, let's say the True Sons, is one that has an armored helmet. He has a pack on his back that you can shoot, that's his weak point, but he also lays on the ground. He gets lower than everybody else and shoots at you on the ground. And that it changes up your whole dynamic. It changes up the way that you have to think about the enemies, the way that you have to deal with the enemies, because you have to be like, okay, I was shooting up at an enemy over here. Now there's bullets coming from way down here, all the way on the left side. I need to go ahead and focus on that target because he's just going to keep on mowing me down. If I don't take care of that guy, then he's going to kill me, because as I'm focusing on this other guy, this guy can just continuously shoot bullets, this heavy that's laying on the ground. So it's stuff like that where all these different archetypes make you constantly change your primary target, constantly think about where you're positioned. For example, rushers, when they run at you, there might be one faction where they are like literally sprinting at you and they're trying to hit you with their melee and stuff like that, and they may have different effects. For example, there could be a rusher, let's say for the outcasts, where they decide to blow themselves up, and then they're literally running at you and they're trying to to blow themselves up. But there could be another faction, let's say the hyenas, where they sprint at you and they try and hit you with their batons, and that causes you to get stunned, right? So it's stuff like that where it adds a lot of thought to the combat, which I think is really awesome. And it's something that they described as an interesting combat puzzle, an engaging combat puzzle, which is something that I definitely think that they accomplished. There's actually a really wonderful interview with Philip Dunstan, I believe that's how you say his name, which you can find in the description, where they just completely talk about AI and how they made this AI different, and how they really tried to improve the AI in this game over the last game and tried to make it different from every other game that's out there. So that's something that you definitely want to check out. The next thing that I want to point out is the, I guess, build diversity, you could say. So we have a large list of weapons, a large list of weapon variations, a bunch of talents, a bunch of stats, stuff like that, right? And each of those can determine how your character behaves in combat, how your character responds to certain situations, how you can respond to certain situations. For example, if you have the perk Unbreakable, you know that you can actually survive taking your armor, like having your armor get broken down, and maybe that allows you to rush a little bit more, because if you have that Unbreakable perk up, then that means that you can run into battle. If your armor breaks, it'll just pop right back up to 90%, and then you could use that armor to try and get back into cover. So it's like stuff like that where it allows you to be a different character for each situation. There's other perks, there's other talents that allow you to stay behind walls, and that will give you and your team extra damage, or stuff that allows you to get more lifesteal when you're close to enemies, or it allows you to do more damage or get more critical damage when you have overshield, stuff like that. Like, it's a bunch of different types of talents that you can have, a bunch of different types of variations of ways that you can go about combat that makes the game really interesting and makes it really cool. It's something that I really enjoy about the game. And a lot of the talents, they actually mesh really well with one another. They're very complementary, so that allows a lot more build diversity, which I really appreciate. Another really cool thing about this game is the attention to detail. You can tell that there are people in this studio that actually care about this game, because if they didn't, then they wouldn't put this kind of stuff in. Small stuff that you were able to see in the Division 1, but definitely it's more prominent in the Division 2. Stuff like you being able to close doors, realistic cloth and physics from hanging items that are on your backpack or that are hanging on a wall or stuff like that. Footprints appear when they're supposed to and where they're supposed to. That's definitely something that was brought over from the Division 1. It's one of the really cool things about the Snowdrop engine, the fact that they're able to do this. Whenever you walk around an area that has some sort of dust or snow or something like that, and your feet disturbs the area, you actually leave a footprint, which I think is really cool. It's not like it's anything new, but it's like attention to detail. It's something that you could tell the devs preemptively thought about and were like, oh, that would be kind of nice to add into the game. It would add a sense of realism. Another thing, plants move out of the way when you walk through them. They're not just static. Not only that, but they also sway in the wind. I think that's really cool. That's a nice attention to detail. Also, every single area in the game feels handcrafted. It feels like they're actually trying to give this place a story. They're trying to show something different. They're trying to convey a different message with each area that is created. And I think that that's really cool and really special. Another reason why I believe this game is something on its own, something very different. It's not like other games don't do this, but difficult content, stuff that's actually hard, stuff that is hard to complete, and that's the reason why it's hard, not because you're just doing time trials. And of course they have time trials. They have, like stuff that you have to do within a certain amount of time, or you have to get a certain amount of points, stuff like that. They do have that in the game, but the difficult content isn't based on that. Those are just other stuff that you can do. The difficult content is stuff like legendary missions, stuff like heroic missions on certain missions, I should say, because some heroic missions are actually pretty easy, but there are a lot of heroic missions that are pretty difficult. Stuff like PvP, like all that stuff. Raids, like this game actually has a good raid. Like it actually has a good raid, and they're adding more as time goes on. So there's difficult content here, and it's not difficult, like I said, because you're trying to complete it within a certain amount of time, or you're trying to get a certain amount of points or anything like that. It's difficult because it's actually hard, and one of the reasons why it's hard is because of the AI. Like I said, the AI makes the game feel different. The AI is what makes you feel like you have to move, make you reposition yourself, make you use the cover system, make you try and like figure out what is actually happening and who to target and what you should be focusing on, stuff like that. It makes you constantly feel dynamic in combat. And that's something that is pretty unique, especially in the looter shooter genre, because I don't really see that in many other games in this genre. So there's that, and then also this game has PvP. Now PvP is kind of broken right now, I'm not even gonna lie. It's still pretty fun, but it's not in the best state that it could be. They're working on it, but as of right now, it could be better. But that doesn't mean that it's not there, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't provide some sort of a challenge. If you're into that, this game has it. Not only does it have regular PvP, like arcade stuff, so stuff like you going in and playing capture the flag and those kind of game modes, but it also has an interesting PvP that I'm sure you've heard about if you've heard about the Division, called the Dark Zone, which is kind of PvPvE. It's something where you go into the Dark Zone, you are fighting at regular NPCs to get loot, and then you have to try and extract it. Now when you're in the Dark Zone, you could go rogue, or other players can go rogue, and they can kill you, or you could kill them to try and get loot, to try and get whatever loot they got. And it's kind of this interesting dynamic because you always feel like you're on your toes whenever you're in the Dark Zone. It's something that's really interesting, and as I said, not too many other games are doing stuff like this. So recently I've been talking a lot of negatives about the game, and there is some negatives with the game. If you want to know about that, you could go ahead and check my other videos on the negatives of the Division 2. There are definitely some glitches, there are definitely some just overall problems with the game, but there is a lot of positive in this game as well, and I want to make sure that I highlight it just as much as the negative, because this game deserves some more attention. This game definitely deserves to be praised in some ways. Of course there are problems, but I think that overall the game still has very positive qualities, even though I'm definitely not innocent in this situation. I think that too many people give it hate. unnecessary hate. I understand people are frustrated. I understand that the game could be better and they just want the game to be as good as it can be. But at the end of the day, you still have to appreciate the positives of the game. I don't know. That's just what I think. Guys, if you are new here, I would super appreciate a sub. This video was a little bit different than what I normally make, but I think that it was something to give a shot, you know what I mean? Something to try out. I hope you did enjoy it. Like I said, if you're new here, I would really appreciate a sub. Make sure you hit that bell icon if you do decide to sub. Additionally, leave a like on the video if you did appreciate the conversation today. Let me know in the comments what you think about this situation. Do you think that this game deserves hate, or do you think that it deserves a little bit more praise? Are you going to try out the game if you have never tried it before, or are you just going to leave it? Is it not your kind of game? Let me know what you think down in the comments. Additionally, make sure you're following me on Twitter. Twitter is really important because I post on there not just funny stuff to make you laugh, but I also post a bunch of updates, whether it's me going live on Twitch or me posting a new video or whatever. That is how you guys can primarily stay connected with me, so I'd really appreciate it if you go ahead and follow my Twitter. All right, guys, that will be it for the video. I'll catch you in the next one.